Hi there, it's Professor Bernstein, and this video is just going to give you a brief overview of some important issues related to plagiarism, direct quotes, ellipsis points, and paraphrasing. Plagiarism, as you probably know, is a form of stealing that involves taking another person's work without giving him or her proper credit. So what I have in the first section is an exact quote from King's letter. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has consistently refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. Now the plagiarized sentence comes underneath it. Nonviolent direct action seeks to cultivate a crisis and establish creative tension so that a community that once refused to negotiate is compelled to deal with the issue. So the writer here is basically taking King's ideas, a great deal of King's direct phrasing, and presenting it as though it were her own sentence, her own ideas, and it's not. The writer changed a few words, like instead of saying create, the writer used the word cultivate. The writer took out the word such before the word creative. Instead of saying consistently refused, the writer said that once refused. So that's still stealing. That is taking the form of King's sentence, it's taking his exact phrasing, and it's not giving him credit. So you don't want to plagiarize, you'll get into a lot of trouble. The most obvious way to avoid plagiarism is to use direct quotes. And when you're using a direct quote, remember that you need to introduce it with a signal phrase. So let me give you some more examples. King explains to the clergyman that. That phrase right there is a signal phrase. It's introducing the quote. So the writer introduces the quote with the signal phrase, provides the direct quote, and when you're using quotation marks, you're telling the reader that the information within those quotation marks are exactly the way, contain information as it is presented in the text itself. So it needs to exactly match the way the text appears in your source. Another option for a signal phrase and a direct quote is in the second example. Nonviolent direct action campaigns are often used to create crisis situations and establish creative tension so that a community that has consistently refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. I'm just trying to show you that there are different ways of using signal phrases and working quotes into your sentences. You might have noticed that there are 3 dots between the word establish and the word creative. These dots are known as ellipsis points and are used to indicate that your quotation does not completely reproduce the original. So you're letting the reader know, hey, it was presented in a slightly different way in the text, I'm leaving out some words. When you use an ellipsis within a sentence, you use the 3 periods with a space before each one. Paraphrasing is also an important skill to possess, especially when it comes time to writing summaries. Paraphrasing involves restating in your own way the author's words, phrases, and ideas. When paraphrasing, you don't need to use quotation marks because you're not using their exact quotes, but you still need to give the author credit. So I'm going to give you here 2 acceptable paraphrases. King points out that the goal of nonviolent direct action campaigns is to cultivate a crisis situation that will compel communities to face the problems and enter into genuine negotiation about these critical issues. And you put the page number there because you're still borrowing King's ideas, but you are putting them in your own words. So you want to let the reader know, if he or she's interested, where she can go back in the text to learn more about what he says. Another acceptable paraphrase would be, The goal of nonviolent direct action campaigns is to cultivate a crisis situation that will compel communities to face their problems and enter into genuine negotiation about these critical issues. So what you're noticing here is that in the first example, I mentioned King's name in the signal phrase. In this paraphrase, I'm not mentioning his name in the signal phrase, so it needs to be mentioned in the parenthetical citation. So if you don't mention the author's name in the signal phrase, include it in the parenthetical citation. Now, there is an important exception. If you're writing a summary, and you're just writing a summary of King's letter from Birmingham jail, if it's clear to the reader that that's who you're citing, you don't need to mention his name in the signal phrase.